May 31st, 1921, the last sun was setting over the richest African American neighborhood in United States history. Did O.W. Gurley, the founder of the Greenwood District known as Black Wall Street, know that night that the empire he had built with his own hands would be destroyed forever, never to return? How would the illegal alcohol trade brought by Prohibition, the rage fueled by racism, and a mysterious incident in an elevator cabin come together?
My name is Otis Wesley Gurley, but everyone just calls me O.W. On the evening of May 31st, that cursed evening of 1921. I was looking out the window of my office on Greenwood Avenue, watching the masterpiece of my life. The streets were lively, as always. Neon lights, melodies of jazz music, and the scent of prosperity danced in the air. As a man approaching 40, 15 years had passed since I first purchased this land in 1906. Back then, there was only bare ground here. Now, before my eyes stretched the richest African-American neighborhood in the United States. Greenwood Avenue had earned the nickname Black Wall Street because of its resemblance to Wall Street, and they were right. In this neighborhood stretching for 45 blocks, there were banks, hotels, restaurants, movie theaters, hospitals, and even our own newspaper. That evening, looking down from my window, I could see the lights of Dreamland Theater illuminating the street. The 12 stories of Williams Building rose as if challenging the sky. The bells of Mount Zion Baptist Church were ringing for evening prayer. Everything was so normal. Who could have known that a storm would break beneath this calm? The prohibition laws had taken effect, of course, but things worked differently in our neighborhood. There were speakeasies selling illegal alcohol, yes, but these were not as widespread as in white neighborhoods. Our people were more focused on their businesses, their families. Most of the 10,000 people living in Greenwood had come here through hard work. Doctors, lawyers, teachers, businessmen. They were all people who had proven that success was possible. I was sitting in my office, reviewing the real estate deals made during the day, when voices rising from outside caught my attention. At first, I thought it was normal street noise, but the voices were gradually increasing. When I approached the window, I noticed there was unusual activity on Greenwood Avenue. People were gathered in groups, talking excitedly with each other. When I went downstairs, my neighbor Johnson came running to me. His face was full of worry. He told me that a young shoeshiner named Dick Rowland had been arrested. I knew Dick, of course. He was around 19 years old, a hard-working young man. He worked shining shoes in the Drexel building. Every day he would take the elevator operated by Sarah Page, an elevator operator who worked in the same building, to shine his customers' shoes. Johnson began to tell me what had happened. That afternoon, Dick had taken the elevator as usual to use the restroom in the Drexel building. Sarah Page was operating the elevator as usual. Whatever happened occurred in that elevator cabin. Some claimed that Dick had attacked Sarah, while others said that Dick had simply tripped and touched Sarah's arm. No one knew what the truth was, but it seemed certain that Sarah had screamed and Dick had panicked and fled from there. The Tulsa police captured Dick and imprisoned him on the top floor of the courthouse in the city center. As soon as the news spread throughout the city, activity began in white neighborhoods as well, especially after the Tulsa Tribune newspaper exaggerated the incident in their reporting. As evening darkness began to fall, tension was rising among neighborhood residents. Everyone knew Dick was innocent, but rumors from white neighborhoods were worrying. Some neighbors said we should go to the courthouse and protect Dick. Others feared things would get even worse. As the night progressed, the crowd gathering on Greenwood Avenue was growing. About 30 to 40 men decided to march to the courthouse. Among them were veterans returned from World War I. These men had fought on European fronts, put their lives on the line for their country. Now they wanted to protect their own people. Around 9 o'clock, the first clash occurred in front of the courthouse. The 30-person group from Greenwood faced off against a crowd of approximately 1,500 people gathered from white neighborhoods. Sheriff Willard McCullough was trying to protect Dick. McCullough was an experienced sheriff, someone who knew his job. He was trying to calm the crowd, doing everything he could to ensure no one got hurt. But when tension reached its peak, a gunshot echoed. No one could exactly tell who fired, but everything changed at that moment. The white crowd began marching toward the Greenwood District in anger. And I, sitting in my office, saw this angry crowd coming toward my neighborhood from my window. The first fire trace appeared in the sky, just after midnight. One of the small shops on Archer Street was burning in flames. The wind carried the smell of fire throughout the entire neighborhood. That smell was one I would never forget for the rest of my life. Burning wood, melting metal, and hopes mixing with smoke. At first it was just a few shops. Then the fire began to spread with the hunger of a monster. It jumped from Archer Street to deep Greenwood Avenue, and from there to Lansing Street. Every burning building was a separate memory for me. In that barber shop on the corner, neighborhood men would gather on Saturday mornings, sharing their weekly news. Now that barber chair, those mirrors, those warm conversations, they were all in flames. When Gurney Hotel began to burn, the pain in my heart deepened even more. This hotel was one of my first major investments in our neighborhood. In this magnificent 54-room structure, guests from all over the country would stay. Famous musicians like Duke Ellington and Louis Armstrong preferred to stay at this hotel when they came to Tulsa. Now that magnificent lobby, those elegant stairs, those comfortable rooms, they had all fallen prey to fire. Around 3 in the morning, my neighbors began fleeing their homes. Women were carrying their children in their arms. Men were trying to save their families' valuable belongings. The elderly were running as fast as they could walk. This scene reminded me of photographs from the Civil War era. But this was the United States, 1921. Such things should not have been happening. Around 4 o'clock, several vehicles from the Tulsa Fire Department began to appear in the neighborhood. But it was too late. Moreover, most of the firefighters seemed focused, not on extinguishing the fire, but on preventing its spread. It was as if the purpose was not to put out the fire, but to completely destroy Greenwood. Around 5 in the morning, the real nightmare began. Airplanes, yes, airplanes appeared in the sky. At first, I couldn't believe my eyes. Gasoline bombs were being dropped from these airplanes. For the first time in United States history, an air raid was being conducted against civilians, and the target of this attack was the Greenwood District, the masterpiece of my life. As flames rose from the top floor of Williams' building, the pain in my heart was indescribable. On each floor of that 12-story building, there was someone's dream, someone's hope, someone's labor. Now, they were all going up in smoke. The neon lights of Dreamland Theater had gone out, replaced by the red glow of fire. The bells of Mount Zion Baptist Church no longer rang, because the bell tower had been leveled. Walking along Greenwood Avenue, I encountered a memory at every step. Right here, I had opened my first real estate office. There, I had welcomed my first customer. On this corner, we had celebrated Christmas with neighborhood neighbors. In front of that building, we had congratulated married couples. Now they were all ashes. People were fleeing their homes, running toward the outskirts of the city with whatever they could carry in their hands. Elderly, children, women, they were all in terror. Mrs. Johnson was trying to carry her 90-year-old aunt, Aunt Mary, on her back. Little Tommy Williams was clutching his teddy bear to his chest, running with his mother. Reverend Peterson was holding the Bible he had rescued from the church, as if protecting it. Some were injured, some were looking for their relatives. Mrs. Thompson stood in the middle of the street, screaming and searching for her missing husband. Dr. Anderson was trying to help the wounded, but his medical supplies had remained in his clinic. Chaos had engulfed us from all sides. People dragged to Convention Hall were being treated like prisoners of war. My neighbors were marching with their hands up, forced to walk at gunpoint by white soldiers. This scene reminded me of stories from slavery times. But what was happening here was taking place in the 20th century, in the free United States of America. When the Oklahoma National Guard arrived in the morning, it was already too late. 35 blocks of the Greenwood District had been completely destroyed. 1,250 homes had burned to ash. 60 businesses, hospitals, schools, churches, they were all gone. Approximately 10,000 people had become homeless, and according to official figures, 36 people had lost their lives, but we knew the real number was much higher. As for Dick Rowland, they never tried him. After Sarah Page declared that she would not press charges, Dick was released. But it was already too late. An innocent action by a young man had ruined the lives of thousands of people. Sheriff McCullough had also done what he could. He had tried to protect Dick, attempted to calm the crowd, but when anger and hatred rose above reason, there was not much a single person could do. Sarah Page, that poor girl was also an innocent victim of these events. She was just an elevator operator. She neither accused Dick nor fueled the events, but the press had exaggerated the story so much that the truth had lost its importance. And I, as a man who had reached 40 years of age, had witnessed the destruction of my life's work in one night. Everything I had built in 15 years had been destroyed in 12 hours. All my money in the bank, my real estate investments, my businesses, they were all gone. But the most painful part was the tears of my neighbors. Dr. Jackson's clinic had burned down, leaving him unable to care for his patients. Teacher Williams's school had been destroyed, forcing children to abandon their education midway. Businessman Thompson's store had been looted, years of savings stolen. In the following days, instead of helping us, the Tulsa City Administration enacted laws that would hinder reconstruction. Using fire safety codes as an excuse, building new structures was made difficult for us. Insurance companies refused to pay compensation. The federal government acted as if the incident had never happened. When we began reconstruction of Greenwood, it could never be the same as before. Many families had left the city. Capital had fled. Trust had been shaken. Still, we did not give up. Once again, even on a smaller scale, I began to rebuild my neighborhood. This event showed me the fine line between being successful in the United States and attracting hatred. The wealth of the Greenwood District had aroused jealousy in some of our white neighbors. The Prohibition-era had further increased social tensions. The illegal alcohol trade had fueled existing racism.
O.W. Gurley's story constitutes one of the darkest pages in United States history. One night of rage had destroyed decades of labor, turning the lives of thousands of innocent people upside down. The destruction of Black Wall Street meant not just the loss of a neighborhood, but the end of a hope, a dream. Gurley dedicated the rest of his life to rebuilding his neighborhood, but Greenwood never regained its former glory. This tragedy painfully demonstrated how vulnerable success and wealth could be in the face of racism.